Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here in Wales. Obviously, from my name, you might think I'm Welsh, but those of you that know me know I'm an interloper. I've never lived in Wales, but my father was born in Cardiff. But now I find my way to another end of the country, to Orkney. And what I want to do is talk to you about the experiences we've had in Orkney over the last 20 years, looking at sustainable energy and how that relates to the community and the supply chain. So the company Aquatera has been in existence for 15 years. We've specialized in marine energy during that time and now worked with over 30 different technology developers, and we've worked on or are working on 10 different array projects across 20 countries in the world. So we feel we've got an experience during that time that is really valuable looking forward, because it's fair to say that this sector hasn't always made the best decisions about how it's going to proceed, and therefore if we learn from our experience in the last 15 years, maybe the next 15 years can be more productive and more successful going forward. Orkney, as a set of islands in the north of Scotland, has a particular relationship with energy, which in many ways mirrors, I think, what's happening here in West Wales. And our experimentation with renewable energy goes back to the 50s, where Orkney was used as a test site for the first wind turbines. In the 1970s, an oil terminal was set up in Scapa Flow, and that led to the involvement of a lot of the community and energy issues. And since the 1990s, there's been a growing focus on marine energy. And I was involved in an EIA for the first Osprey device that went off Dounreay in 1994. And since 2000, Orkney's been home to what we call the world's biggest energy experiment. And that energy experiment has embraced most of the 20,000 people that live in Orkney. And the money invested since 2000 is about £500 million in renewable energy in Orkney in one form or another. And the reason that investment has taken place is because of the incredible energy resources we have around the islands. In the north of Scotland, the wind quite often blows, and that brings waves with it to the coasts. And the archipelago of islands have tidal flows that flow through at very fast speeds. We have about 18 different streams around the Orkney Islands. And that gives us a possible resource of 5 gigawatts that we think is developable, taking into account technical and planning constraints. So the island's ambition over the time between now and 2050 is to get as close to that 5 gigawatts target as we can. And one of the drivers, and probably the biggest driver for that, is the jobs and the economic development that comes with it. The islands have flourished through the economic stimulus that came from the oil terminal in the last 30 or 40 years. And the islanders want to see that economic vitality continue through the downturn in oil that we're now seeing, and renewables is a big part of that. What we've done then is embraced renewable energy, and in 2013 we reached that threshold of 100% of our electricity over the year, the demand for electricity being generated from renewable energy. So the naysayers in 2002, 2003 that said you'd never get more than 20% of renewables onto the grid were wrong. We've got over 100% of renewables onto our grid in Orkney, and we're doing very well on it. That figure has risen to 109%, and that extra 9% gets exported to the rest of Scotland. As I'll come on to, we do have problems with grid connections, and I think that again is something which isn't unfamiliar to you in this part of the world as you look forward to the future as well. We've also focused on marine energy, and you've heard about, and you will know about MEP. MEP has been host to 18 different technologies, and another 3 different technologies probably coming this year. We've deployed those technologies over 25 times. It's involved 20 permitting exercises, over 100 surveys, and over 2,000 days of operational activity in the waters around Orkney. And it's really that experience of undertaking all those activities that Orkney can share with the rest of the world. And as well as Aquatera here today, Dougie is here from Lease Marine, one of the key contractors that have worked with many of these technologies and getting them into the water. So Orkney businesses have accumulated that expertise over the last 15 years and are ready now to share that with other parts of the world that are wanting to follow that pathway. The total number of jobs that were created peaked in 2013. It might be interesting to think of a peak already in this genesis of this early sector. But we saw steady growth from 2000 through to 2013. But in the last 2 years, there's been a downturn already in our part of the world because of the well-publicized troubles that have been faced by a number of the wave and the tidal technology companies. So we've lost 65 jobs in the last 2 years. We've accumulated another 10 on the academic side, and so our tally at the moment is about 240 jobs related to the marine energy sector. That's a great achievement in a place like Orkney, where we have a population of 20,000 people, but it also means we have a need to raise £650,000 a month to support those jobs. And that's when the reality of economic development kicks in from just a pure aspiration. So what we've seen is that the work associated with MEP, which in 2013 probably accounted for 70% of the turnover in the islands, has dropped to 30%. The Pentland Firth Orkney Waters, which really never took off as a supply chain activity for us yet in Orkney, has dropped from about 15% to probably less than 10%. Export trade around the world has increased from 15% to 20%, and we've now got the supply chain actively involved in research. Our research monies in Scotland are coming direct to the supply chain to find solutions, not just coming through technology development, and I think that's a really important development. And we've also seen diversification. Most of the companies that are involved in marine energy in Orkney actually were involved in other businesses before they got involved in marine energy. And what we're seeing is, as the downturn comes for us in the local marine energy trade, we're having to refine those markets and bolster our activity in those areas. All of this activity has happened through, as I mentioned, an investment of just under £500 million. And what I think is remarkable for a community the size of Orkney is that if you look at the marine energy part of that, we think £270 million has been invested in activities related to Orkney. Of that, £40 million has come from the local community in terms of infrastructure, investment in boats, investment in people, investment in data. So Orkney's put its hand into its pocket and actually made this happen. It's not something that somebody else has made happen. We've helped make this happen for our community because of the criticality of the economic argument. There's a whole range of achievements that have been made in partnership between Orkney as a community, the supply chain, and the technology developers and the inventors that have come to our islands. And I won't go through all of those, but you'll see those in the presentation if you download it in the future. We've also looked at the infrastructure that's necessary to support our developments, and we have a Christmas wish list, which we've referred to it, which comes to about £5 to £8 billion of investment that's needed to develop the first 1,000 megawatts of capacity, probably whether it's wave or tide. And we think we've tested this in various other parts of the world, and wherever you go, you come up with roughly the same answer. So if there's an aspiration for 1,000 megawatts of capacity, somebody needs to be finding the investment to fund perhaps £5 billion of investment in infrastructure and facilities. We've made great strides in that area, but we've still got a long way to go, particularly around grid infrastructure. So to conclude, we believe the world is transforming. Certainly our climate is changing, and concerns are growing about the sustainability of our energy supply and our lifestyles. One of the things we've seen in Orkney is customers' attitudes changing. So instead of people being happy just to take energy from anybody, people are taking responsibility and investing in their own energy solutions. So what's happened in Orkney, we term a form of crowdfunding. It's individual people putting their hand in their pocket and getting involved in their energy supply and making sure that their energy supplies in the future are sustainable. And because of that commitment that you get in island and I believe also in rural communities, I think that places like Pembroke can actually be leaders of the way this industry goes forward. Because instead of expecting somebody else to find the solutions, you've got to look within yourselves to find the solutions that are going to lead to success. Thank you.